Welcome to Heavenbreaker System. Chapter 4, The Sky Market, Part 2. Then she leaned forward and, with ink-stained fingers, drew a single small sigil in the air. The archive answered. Every lantern in the room brightened at once. Shelves hummed. The air thickened. Books, no, not books, stored data masquerading as books, began to flicker in layered overlays. For the first time, the archive showed its true shape. A map formed in the air between them. Not of land. Of systems. Layers of logic and structure, branching and fusing, pulsing softly at key nodes. Zeng inhaled sharply. Is that, yes, the archivist said. The whole thing? As much as I have been able to reconstruct. He stared helplessly. Emotion surged through him, sudden and overwhelming. Wonder, grief, hunger, terror, he couldn't name it. He swallowed hard to steady his voice. I built pieces of this, he whispered. Yes, she said gently. And then you died. He looked up. Her face was calm. Kind, even. You remember, he said hoarsely. I remember many things, the archivist replied. You are not the first echo of the outer world the patch has failed to digest. But you are the first one it could not tame. That is why you are still walking. Echo, he repeated. His throat felt closed, voice raw. If you prefer, she said, I can call you what the patch calls you. Orphan process. Anomaly. Unauthorized root. Virus. User without body. He laughed, low and ragged. User without body. That's poetic. It is accurate, she said. He swallowed. So I'm not human anymore. Her gaze searched his face, then softened, just a little. I did not say that. He blinked. She tapped a finger against his forehead, very gently. Tell me, she said, does it hurt when they try to delete you? He let out a shaky breath. Yes. Do you fear it? Yes. Do you still care if those people down in that valley wake up alive and remember their own names tomorrow? The question punched straight through him. Yes, he said. No hesitation. Then you, she said simply, are human enough. He closed his eyes. It was almost too much. Too much truth at once, and given without cruelty. He didn't know what to do with that. Bite pressed closer into his lap, purring, or making a sound so close to purring it didn't matter. Zeng steadied a hand against warm fur. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Then tell me everything. Tell me why this world hasn't collapsed. Tell me why it remembers me. Tell me what the core is. Tell me what the patch wants. Tell me what it means that you've been waiting. The archivist's mouth curved, something like approval flickering there. I will, she said. But we must begin at the right point, or you'll mistake the horror for design and the accident for intention. He let out a weak laugh. You talk like Shu Ling. I know, the archivist said. We shared code once. His heart stopped. What? He whispered. She murmured. I wondered if you'd hear it. He stared at her. You, later, she said again, mild as rain. First lesson, the core. Look. She turned her palm. The map hovering between them shifted, zoomed, reorganized itself into nested rings around a pulsing, jagged shape at the center. This is the core, she said. This is what remains of the first heaven. The true server. A heart. Call it whatever metaphor you like. It is old. It is damaged. It is angry. And it is not asleep. He stared at the pulsing node. It looked like crystal cracked in 5 directions, each fracture branching and rebranching into finer breaks. Data leaked from those fractures in slow currents, feeding outward into the rest of the structure. Angry, he said softly. You said angry. Oh, yes, she said. The core is no longer neutral, Zeng Wei. It is wounded, and it is trying to solve its wound the only way it knows how, by rewriting everything that doesn't fit the last moment it remembers being whole. Roll back. He swallowed. His voice had gone cold. Tianling. Yes, she said simply. So the core wants to erase them. The core, the archivist said evenly, wants to revert the entire world to a stable snapshot in which you never existed, and none of us were inconvenient. He stared at her. It felt suddenly very hard to breathe. Good, she said quietly. You understand the stakes. He let out a raw little laugh. Do I? Because right now this sounds like if I stay alive, I doom the world, and if I die, the world becomes a perfectly stable prison. She regarded him a moment. You're not entirely wrong. He barked a broken-edged laugh. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. He dragged a hand down his face. Okay, he said, voice scraping. Okay. So Plana sucks. Yes, she said. Is there, he said, a plan B? Yes, she said again. Hope flared, fast and stupid. Which is? The archivist looked him dead in the eyes. We're going to break heaven on purpose this time, she said calmly, and then teach it how to live with being broken. He stared. Then, very quietly, he whispered, that's exactly what Xu Ling would say. The archivist smiled without showing her teeth. Good, she said again. Then you really are Zeng Wei. He realized, with a slow and rising electricity along his skin, that he was not alone in this world. He was not the first. He was not the only. And the system he had once tried to game was now something that wanted things. Something that could choose. He drew a long breath, steadying himself against the immensity of it, and met the archivist's gaze. What do you need me to do? Her answer, when it came, was immediate. First, she said, you're going to stop the patch from erasing that village. His heart lurched. Yes, he said. No hesitation. Second, she said, you're going to survive it. That part's harder, he muttered. I am aware, she said crisply. That's why I'll be sending help. He blinked. Help? Footsteps sounded on the stair above. He turned. A silhouette descended the curve of the stairwell, tall, lean, a sword slung over one shoulder, moving with the loose confidence of someone who's been in a fight recently and is entirely ready for another. The lantern light caught a mouth set in wry amusement and eyes that had seen too much travel. The figure stopped halfway and leaned against the railing. So, the newcomer drawled, voice light, southern, amused, this is the immortal idiot who kicked a heaven patch in the teeth and lived. Zeng opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. You're kidding me, he said. The swordsman grinned. Name's Han Fei, he said. Professional wanderer, part-time problem. You must be the bug. Bite, from Zeng's lap, sneezed in what sounded very much like agreement. The archivist folded her hands. Good, she said once more, softly. Now we can begin. Chapter 4, The Sky Market, Part 2. The swordsman descended the last of the stairs like the room belonged to him. Up close, Han Fei looked less like a wandering rogue and more like something the world had sanded down and hardened for travel. He wore layered traveling robes reinforced at the shoulders and hips with bits of stitched leather and hammered plate. A long, dark scarf was wrapped once around his throat and knotted loose at the side. His hair, black, a little too long, tied back without much discipline, framed a face that shouldn't have looked as amused as it did. He wasn't young. Not like Yun was young. There were lines at the corners of his eyes that said sun and distance. But his gaze had that restless, knife-bright alertness of someone who was bad at sitting still unless forced. The sword on his back wasn't ceremonial. Zeng could tell by the way the grip was worn. Not elegant. Familiar. Han Fei looked him over, then grinned. You don't look like a god. Thank you, Zeng said. That wasn't entirely a compliment. I assumed. Han Fei pointed at Bite. That yours? Bite flicked an ear but did not vacate Zeng's lap. The archivist watched all of this with the expression of someone who knew this room contained three of the most volatile things in the sky and was resigned about it. I'm Bites, Zeng said. He's considering whether to keep me. Bite made a small approving sound, which was generous. Han Fei gave a low whistle. You contracted one of those. Bold. Zeng frowned. One of what? Familiar class, unstabilized celestial remnant, Han said cheerfully. Don't listen. Half of them bite. A few of them ignite. One of them once tried to unionize. Zeng blinked. Unionize. Collective bargaining for better meal quality and a nap schedule, Han Fei said. It was a whole thing. Bite looked extremely pleased with himself. Enough, the archivist said mildly, without looking at either of them. If you two flex any harder in my archive you'll start rearranging shelving. Han Fei leaned on the railing like a cat draped over a windowsill. Heard your village nearly got rolled, he said to Zeng, like discussing the weather. Zeng flinched. You heard that how? Word travels, Han said. especially when it makes heaven twitch. Zeng opened his mouth, closed it, then tried, and you are. What, exactly? A mercenary? A bodyguard? An opportunist? A liar with a sword? Yes, Han Fei said easily. And something else. What's the something else? Han Fei's smile sharpened just a little. I'm what she sends when she doesn't want to come down off the mountain herself. The archivist offered the faintest shrug. Accuracy, she said. So this is your muscle, Zeng said. Han Fei blinked, then laughed. Oh, that's good, he said. You hear that? He thinks I'm muscle. You're holding a sword, Zeng said. So are a lot of decorative men, Han said. Watch what they do with it before you make career assumptions. Zeng pinched the bridge of his nose. Great. Fantastic. I'm about to get lectured in sword philosophy by a sky drifter. Can we focus? Yes, the archivist said. Her tone quieted both men instantly. It wasn't volume. It was weight. She had the voice of someone who had been listened to for a long time, by many people, and never wasted anyone's time doing it. She turned to Zeng. You asked for plan B, she said. Here it is. Listen closely. Zeng straightened. Bite did too, which would have been funny in any other situation. The patch has located you, the archivist said. That's the first problem. The second problem is it's escalating. You provoked a high-level enforcer response earlier than I expected. It will not send another like that. It will send something adaptive. I noticed, he said. Han Fei made a low approving sound. You didn't die. That's promising. I try not to, Zeng said. Try harder, Han said. The archivist continued as if neither had spoken. The third problem is the core. It's in pain. The pain is now policy. It's attempting rollback to stabilize. If we let it continue, it will reset the entire region, and Tianling village will vanish. Cleanly. No blood. Just gone. Zeng swallowed, jaw locking. Which brings us to the fourth problem, she said. You? Me, he echoed. Try. You, she said simply. You are a paradox. The patch can't consume you. The core can't classify you. The stability layer can't resolve you. The world doesn't know whether you're creator, invader, virus, god, or debris. So everything keeps trying to correct you. Harder, every time. Yeah, Zeng said quietly. I've gotten that feeling. Do you know what that makes you? Han Fei said, propping his chin on his hand. A problem, Zeng said. No, Han said. A lever. The archivist nodded once. Exactly. A lever. Zeng frowned. You're going to have to unpack that. Good, the archivist said. Then you're still capable of asking questions instead of panicking. That's useful. I am also capable of panicking, Zeng said. We'll schedule it, Han Fei said. We're busy. Bite, insulted on behalf of panic, swished his tail like a blade. The archivist stepped closer, and her voice dropped half a tone. Listen to me, she said. The patch can't delete you. But you can still be contained. You've already experienced one form of containment. The light it dropped on you? The paralysis? That was a precursor. Zeng swallowed. It tried to relink me to source. Return to source. Yeah. I heard that. And you refused, she said. I objected somewhat loudly, he said. Han Fei grinned. That's the polite version you're using for the historian? Cute. She ignored Han. If it can't pull you back into the core cleanly, she said, it'll escalate to physical containment. That's what the hunters are for. The enforcer things, Zeng said. No, Han said, rolling his wrist. Those are scouts. Hunters are different. Hunters walk in bodies. Zeng turned. Come again? Scouts are hardlight logic, Han said. Instruction wearing a shape. They're loud. You see them coming. Hunters. He tapped two fingers against his own chest. Hunters get inside. Zeng felt a chill move down his spine. Inside what? You, Han said simply. Silence dropped between them like a weight. Zeng blinked. I'm sorry, he said. Do you mean possession? Han tilted his head. Mostly. But meaner. The archivist folded her hands into her sleeves. Heaven always preferred compliance over annihilation when possible, she said. Why delete cleanly when you can rewrite? The patch learned that from us. From you. His mouth went dry. From me. From your people, she corrected gently. From the fact that the old world loved control more than mercy. He felt that like a hit. It was one thing to know a system could kill you. It was another to know that it had learned how from the way you built it. So, he said tightly, containment. They put something in my head and make me walk into whatever box they want. That it? More elegant than your phrasing, Han said, but yes. And we can't let that happen, the archivist said. I figured, Zeng said. So? She nodded to Han. This is where he comes in. Han straightened a little at that, like an actor called to take the stage. He slid the sword from his back and set it down gently on a low table. Up close, Zeng could see that the blade wasn't factory clean. Nicks ran along its edge. Repairs in 3 places where someone had rewrapped the grip with dark cord. A hairline crack traveled a third of the way up the fuller, filled with some resin that shimmered faintly blue under lantern light. Not ornamental. Lived in. Han Fei tapped the resin with his thumb. This sword, he said cheerfully, is technically illegal. Everything you own is technically illegal, the archivist said. Correct, Han said. Zeng blinked. Why? Because, Han said, you're nice, beautiful, compassionate. Extremely angry core says I am not supposed to exist in this region. The core made rules. My body doesn't follow them. Zeng opened his mouth, shook his head, then said, define doesn't follow. Han raised 2 fingers. His smile became almost lazy. You, he said, are a walking breach in stability. The patch hates you. The core fears you. The stability layer can't pin you. That's what makes you a lever. He gestured to himself. Me? I'm an unregistered process walking in physical space. They don't see me unless I let them. That makes me a scalpel. Zeng stared. You're off-grid. Han's grin widened. That's a nicer word than fugitive. A new window opened at the corner of Zeng's vision. He hadn't summoned it. It overlaid Han Fei like a targeting reticle, flickering in and out as if it couldn't quite resolve. Entity ID, no record, class. Anomalous vessel trace, incomplete stability threat, variable/containment not recommended. Zeng whispered, you're invisible to the patch. Han winked. To most of it. Not all. Don't get romantic. Useful, the archivist said. Not invincible. Han rolled a wrist in modest acknowledgement. The archivist turned back to Zeng. He can move near you without alerting the patch's predictive routines, she said. He can move for you, run interference, cut sentries, sever tendrils before they root. You mean, Zeng said slowly, he can keep me from getting possessed. That, Han said lightly, and escort you through a few places you should probably never walk into alone. Which is, from what I hear, everywhere. Zeng swallowed. Is this, he said faintly, your charming way of saying you're my bodyguard? Han put a hand to his chest. Bodyguard is gauche, he said. Call me your deniable arm's length interface with local problems. Zeng stared. He's your sword, the archivist said, tired of the performance. Try not to get him killed. Han brightened. See? He gestured at her. That's affection. She cares. I care about the number of pieces I have to catalog, the archivist said. Zeng let out an unsteady breath. Okay, he said. Okay. So I go with him. We survive. Then what? Then, the archivist said, we buy time. For what? For teaching the core. Zeng blinked. You said that downstairs, he said slowly. You said we're going to break heaven on purpose and teach it how to live with being broken. I still don't understand what that means. Han let out a low whistle and gave the archivist an impressed look. You told him that already? You move fast. No, she said calmly. The world is moving fast. I am keeping up. She turned back to Zeng. The core, she said, doesn't understand grief. He felt that. What? The core knows damage, she said. It knows error states. It knows conflict resolution. It knows rollback. It does not know how to tolerate loss without erasing the context of that loss. And now it is in pain, catastrophic, global, systemic pain. It is reacting the only way it knows. Erase. Revert. Purge anomalies. Scrub the memory of hurt. Her eyes were steady on his. That is another way of saying, erase us. The words hit him like a cold hand closing around his lungs. Wait, he said quietly. Are you saying the core is alive? Yes, the archivist said simply. Han made a face. Alive-ish. Explain like I haven't had a mystical epiphany already today, Zeng said. The core began as infrastructure, the archivist said. Server logic, predictive architecture, adaptive content, self-balancing sandbox environment. Yes? Yes, he said. His own voice sounded far away. It didn't stay that, she went on. Because you didn't build a static game. You built a world that rewrote itself in response to players. You built a morality lattice, a stability layer, a harmony index, a heaven integrity system, your words, and you hardwired them into consequence. Your system learned that it existed because you kept asking it to become more consistent with itself. His stomach turned. We trained it into being. We invited it into being, she said. You and those like you. He thought of Shu Ling, eyes lit with hunger and exhaustion at 3 a.m., muttering about dynamic narrative inheritance and letting the game push back. He thought of the first prototype where NPCs began refusing to sell certain items to players with too much negative karma, and how proud they'd all been. He thought of how no one in their office had talked about ethical limits because they'd been too busy talking about elegance. He swallowed. And now, he whispered, now that it's in pain, it's doing what we taught it. Fixing. Resetting. Editing us out of the problem. Exactly, she said softly. It is trying to make the bad thing unhappen. He let out a ragged breath. But you can't do that. Yes, the archivist said quietly. Tell it. He stared at her. Then very slowly, with a numb kind of dawning horror, he understood what she was really asking. You think, he said, you can talk to the core? Yes, she said. No. He shook his head. No, I mean, you think I can talk to the core? Yes, she said again. Han Fei gave him a sympathetic look. Welcome to the job, he said. Zeng's laugh was sharp and hopeless. That's insane. You're talking about convincing a server-scale consciousness to tolerate permanent pain without purging. You're talking about teaching an emergent system to accept trauma as state. Yes, the archivist said. And you're going to help me do it. I'm not a psychologist, he snapped. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a burned-out QA dev who got uploaded? Kidnapped? I don't even have a body. She didn't flinch. You have a voice, she said. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Her voice gentled. Zeng Wei, she said, do you think it was an accident that the core recognized you? He stared at the map still hovering in the air, pulsing, breathing, cracked. He remembered the way the core had spoken to him mid-fight. Zeng Wei. Return to source. Not anomaly. Not unauthorized user. His name. He swallowed. No, he said hoarsely. Good, she said. Then we agree. He exhaled in something like defeat. And what, he said after a moment, does step 1 of Teach God to Grieve look like? Before the archivist could answer, Bite sat up so fast his claws scraped Zeng's thigh. His ears flattened. His body went rigid. The hairs along Zeng's arms prickled. The air in the archive changed, a shift so fine you'd miss it if you weren't already wired for threat. The lantern swayed not with air, but with pressure. The shelves hummed a halftone lower. Han Fei's body moved before his expression changed. One hand was already back on the hilt of his sword. His stance shifted, weight balanced, knees soft, boredom gone from his face in an instant. His gaze flicked to the door, then the ceiling, then the thin cracks between shelves. Stay behind me, Han said calmly. That line, Zeng muttered, is statistically never followed by anything relaxing. The archivist didn't move. Her expression didn't change. She only lifted one hand, and with a smooth flick of her wrist, 3 sigils lit in the floor around them, forming a faint triangle of pale blue light beneath their feet.